Excellency, dear friends, dear guests, very original idea to exhibit or to stage philosophy, an experiment that I am very, very curious about. I'm so proud and happy that this can happen at the museum where I work, the Moderna Museet. It's a collaboration with many, many people. It's a big collective endeavor, this, and it's also an institutional collaboration. So I would want to start thanking our new ambassador, David Cvach, that he's here with us tonight to open this great evening. And I also want to mention that the whole project is a collaboration with the École Normale Supérieure in Paris, with the Södertörn University, the French Institute and the Goethe Institute. And I see many representatives from all these places, and do know that you worked hard. We will not list everyone because we all have a role in this, and I think we can celebrate together and be part of the project. People have worked very hard in a program group. I will mention a few people. Mathieu Bonneville, Erik Bryngelsson, Arpad Sölter, who I see right there from the Goethe Institute. And we have Marion Waller and Sven-Olov Wallenstein, who are the people who have come up with the theme, which is maybe not totally self-explanatory, so we will get a small introduction. There's a group, of course, who has worked very hard logistically and practically with staging all of this. Here at the museum, Karin Malmqvist, I want to thank Karin, Camilla Karlberg, Laurent Clavel, Lara Sabo-Greisman, Astrid Grels and Thomas Vassart. I'm sure I missed some, so please help me. I don't want anyone to feel not mentioned. I want to give a special thank also to an artist. This is, after all, an art museum, and there is art all over the place, but we have Henrik Håkansson, a great Swedish artist, who has produced special projects for this evening. So I'm very curious about that. But please join me, Mr. Ambassador, and give us the blessing that we need.
You are overestimating me. I will do this in 1 minute because I know that nobody here came to listen to a French ambassador. Although you should enjoy this moment because it's the last moment tonight when you can afford actually not to listen and not to think, because once I'm done it will be a different story. Because we are very happy to have brought together and to have brought to you 50 philosophers from Sweden, from France and from Germany to have presentations tonight about philosophy in general and the particular theme tonight of nature and, someone help me here, artifice. I'll be much more knowledgeable at 3 o'clock in the morning. You mentioned a lot of names. I will mention institutions, and with that I think we'll be covered. That we want to particularly thank, of course, Moderna Museet, Södertörn University, Institut Français de Paris, École Normale Supérieure, Goethe Institute, Institut Français de Suède, and Air France. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the presence. And I wish you a very good evening, actually a very good night.
So, our dear friend Sven-Olov Wallenstein, who is one of the, I think, 2 people who came up with the very theme, will give us a short intro.
So, thank you. I'll just say a few brief words about the theme for the evening. I mean, second nature. Second nature, what is that? It's not self-explanatory, as Daniel said. And the term second nature, in fact, appears already in ancient Greek philosophy, in Aristotle, who says that first nature are those things that exist by themselves, like the physical world, winds, water, air, animals, our own bodies, etc. Whereas second nature are things like our moral institutions and social practices. They do not exist by themselves. And from that point onward, the term second nature has expanded to cover all kinds of human inventions, not just morals, but also all kinds of artifacts, technologies, the sciences, the arts, etc. So the question then becomes how these 2 orders relate to each other. I think if we look at this relation historically, the least one can say is that it is not a stable and evident one, but a constantly shifting one. And what we mean by nature is always dependent on our sciences, our technologies, and our social practices. I think this question about first and second nature has become even more pertinent today, and more pertinent than ever before, because in a time of environmental crisis, where our capacity to transform both external nature as well as ourselves has yielded fabulous results, but also threats to humanity as a whole. In this period, the question of nature needs to be put once more, and this is what we have proposed as a theme for this night of philosophy. And we hope that it will provoke new questions, possibly some new answers, or at least make us think more profoundly and be more curious, which in the end I think is what philosophy is all about. And having said that, I will leave the word to Frédéric, who is a professor of philosophy at the École Normale Supérieure in Paris, with whom I have discussed the theme, and Frédéric will say a few words. So please, Frédéric.
Thank you, Olle. I want to bring my words to this greeting words to you. I want to thank the ambassador and all the other institutions, the French Institute, the museum, the university where Valle teaches, Södertörn University here, for having invited us to invite you to be part of the inviting people and institutions. I want to put briefly this event in three perspectives. First, the École Normale Supérieure in Paris is very happy to participate with the other organizers, bringing a few students, and it's also an event for students, for professors, for philosophy, and all other disciplines, of course. Second, the Philosophy Nights it's an event that French institutions and the French institutes support all over the world. It's a sort of revitalizing of philosophy, and of course it brings all the publics with a plural to philosophy, and in a museum it's particularly important. We don't see a break, a rupture between nature and artifice, and we don't see a rupture between art and philosophy, and it's very important to be here today, so thank you so much for bringing us to this beautiful place. And the third point, of course, is political. I think this event is also part of what is building itself in Europe. In France, we are trying to build a network of institutions, of higher education institutions, to reflect on European critical events today. I hope that we can still work together, build a network of European institutions, and that these three connections, political, artistic and philosophic, and also, of course, pedagogic, and with students and all the publics, the public education and the public European problems will go on. So thank you. I know we will have a wonderful night, so I'm happy to participate in it and to welcome you again.
For magnifying our perceptual capacities. Our memory is limited, so we have a lot of tools to help our memory. I have a sheet of paper in front of me to help me remembering my talk here. We started, the earliest memory might have been pictures. Cave paintings is probably not for memory, but for other things. We have developed a system of writing some 5,000 years ago. And then in modern times we have many other types of aids for memories. Tape recorders, cameras, computers, and whatnot. That's a lot of things to help our memory. We have notebooks and lots of things. We have tools to helping us find our ways. We have maps. Some of you have come here by a map. Nowadays the maps are in our mobile phones. We have road signs, we have GPS systems and so on. You don't have to remember your way from A to B anymore. You can use technology to find your way. And so we don't need to keep roads in our minds. We have things to draw our attention. If we need warning, we can have blinking lights or warning sounds or whatever. So attention can be controlled by technology. We have different techniques for problem solving. We can use, I have another stage prop of mine, this nice Institut Français pen. It's a very nice tool for solving problems. We can use calculators and computers, of course. We have tools for communication. I can point to the pen again, but we also have telegraphs and telephones and computers, all kinds of tools for communication. We have tools for learning. There are books. Traditionally, we learn by book. We have pencils. We have blackboards. We have multimedia. We have virtual reality, and lots of other technological props here. We even have tools for creativity. I can go back to the pencil on the pen again, but we have CAD programs and mind mapping programs and so on. Modern technology has really enhanced our brains. Someone had said that we've made the world so smart that we can afford to be stupid. And that's true. I mean, we can relieve our minds quite a lot by using this technology. And I spoke about Swiss Army knife. This is the modern Swiss Army knife. I mean, these smartphones have really developed into multitask tools. And we use them, and for many of the cognitive amplifiers I talked about, we nowadays use this mind Swiss knife, as it could be called. To some extent, we become artifacts of our tools. We have problems with chairs when people come here. Some of you have to stand, some sit down. We have become so used to chairs that for many of us, including myself, it's difficult to sit squatting. My body, my muscles are not adapted for that anymore. My body has been adapted to sitting on chairs. That's a very trivial example, not very cognitive. But anyway, many of us would maybe not function so well, not even be alive without modern medicine. To some extent, our lives have become artifacts of modern medicine. And some of us, we will hear a lot about that tonight, I guess, have started using implants of different kinds. We become cyborgs. We expand ourselves as human beings by adding technology to our bodies. In principle, I don't think there is very much of a difference between having something implanted and carrying this stuff with you all the time, because it has very much the same functions. But we become, in that sense, we have become dependent on the things we've made. So this was my starting presentation of things that we think with. Now I get to a little bit more philosophical discussion about this development. I'm a cognitive scientist. Philosophers also think about where consciousness comes from, where thinking comes from, and so on. And when computers started appearing, a very popular picture was that the brain is a computer. And you have input and you have output. I mean, input is sensory perception, output is speech or bodily movement. But the computer, the brain, works in isolation as an independent system. That was part of this dogma. That metaphor, that the brain is a computer, didn't work very well. It doesn't. The brain doesn't function in that way. So later, in the 80s, 1980s and 1990s, there was a kind of counter-movement. And it's called, in terms of embodied cognition. We think with aid, by using our body, we think. I mean, the body is involved in the thinking. And also what is called situated cognition. We think by using tools around us. We think by reacting to the world. So thought is not isolated to brain. Thought is a kind of combination of the brain, the body, and the world. So this is a kind of new picture. And that changes our understanding of tools. Tools are not independent. Tools are part of our thinking process. Gregory Bateson once took the example of a blind man using a stick. I mean, blind people walk with sticks and they feel obstacles and hear echoes and so on using it. So the stick becomes part of their perceptual system. And Bateson asked the question, where does the man end and where does the stick begin? And this question is, of course, meant to show that the stick becomes part of the man's system when the blind man is walking around. So that's a very nice example of, I mean, when you sit in a car, right? I mean, the car becomes part of you. I mean, you feel the curb with your steering wheel or whatever. I mean, it becomes an extended part of your body. A submarine captain sees with the periscope. We find our ways with GPSs and maps and so on. We think with our road signs, we think with our calculators, we think with our smartphones. So there is no clear dividing line between the thinking that is done in the head and the thinking that goes on outside. You could say that consciousness, our awareness of the world, leaks out into the world. There is no sharp boundary between the mind and the external world and the body. Sometimes children, when they start counting, they use their fingers to keep track of their counting. I mean, that's a very trivial example of using one's body as part of thinking. So, if you're a skilled craftsman, carpenter, dress designer, cook, whatever, your skill becomes an extension of your consciousness. Your consciousness becomes richer by having this skill. You know how to solve a problem. You are thinking ahead of time in your problem-solving situation. So this skill in handling the tools we have made for solving different problems actually expands our consciousness, our conscious awareness of the world. I mean, if you have a particular skill, think about how you experience the world when you're using different tools, or a painter using a brush or whatever expands his or her consciousness. So the trend of the old idea of the brain as a computer has been given up, and the new way of understanding how we interact, how we think, is to bring in the body and the expanding world. And thereby, tools actually becomes part of our thinking. I recently found a book by a British archaeologist. His name is Lambros Malaforis, a Greek name. And the title of the book is How Things Shape the Mind. And he goes even further in this speculation. He says that there is no sharp border between a mind and a thing. They are more or less the same two sides of the same coin. I mean, things and mind are more or less parallel. I mean, his opinion is a bit radical, and I don't know how well received it is yet, because it's quite new. So he's an archaeologist, and he has been studying how people a long time ago were flaking stones to make a hand axe or whatever. And when you use a tool to do something, you have an intention. You think that you decide, no, I want to do this, I mean, I want to paint something, I want to write something, I want to cook something, or whatever your plan is, and you use all kinds of tools for it. And you think that first you form an intention, first you form a plan, and then you do it. But Malaforis' argument is that no, that's not enough. Your body and the tools are part of your thinking. It's part of your intention. You cannot form the intention to make a new flake or form something in your kitchen, cook something in your kitchen, without having the things there. I mean, your bodily enactment and the tools you're using is part of your intention. It's part of your awareness of the situation. So this is a further step in not having the mind as an independent entity, but again bringing in the body and the things that we have created. So that's we normally think of intentions as something that is created by the mind, but according to Malaforis, that's not true.
Alltså, som sagt, Mitt namn är Walter Frankenstein. Jag är född 1924 i Flatå. Det har varit en småstad i Västpreussen. Det är en del av Tyskland som blev överlämnat eller blev tagen till Polen. Och idag är det staden Slotov. Var då när jag levde i denna stad som barn hade 7000 invånare och en 10 gånger så stor. Där tillbringade jag mina första 12 åren av mitt liv. Där började jag skolan och där för att det var ett småstad visste alla från vilken familj jag kommer. Och jag visste att mina föräldrar var tyskar av judisk tro och därigenom från och med den 30 januari 1933 var jag en som inte hörde mera till sällskapet och var avgränsad från övriga före detta skolkamrater och vänner. Mina vänner i tidigare barndom var minst lika många kristna som judiska vänner. Och till och med den 30 januari blev det en avgränsning. Föräldrarna lät sina barn inte längre leka med mig för rädslan av repressalier från nazisterna. Jag pratade häromdagen med en barndomsvän, en flicka som då var 5 år när hon var på min 7:e födelsedag på kalaset. Och hon berättade att det fanns en annan diskriminering också på den tiden. För att när hon kommer till skolan, alltså 2 år senare, 3 år senare, och föräldrarna tillät inte att hon skulle vara med i BDM, alltså Bund Deutscher Mädchen, alltså den kvinnliga Hitlerjugend. Och då kom till skolan och hennes skolkamrater, de gick alla med alltså svart kjol och vit blus med halsduk. Det var medlemmar i Hitlerjugend, i BDM, och hon fick inte tillåtelse av sina föräldrar. Och det var en upplevelse för henne, för hon var avskild från de andra. De pratade inte med henne, de lekte inte med henne, och till slutet, när hon flera dagar hade gråtit hemma, fick hon också vara med. Från det ögonblicket var hon också en av de många. Och det var lätt att få med ungdomar till Hitlerjugend och till BDM. För att där fick de uppleva allt som är roligt för ungdomar. Jag kommer ihåg att jag stod som 9-åring vid fönstret och Hitlerjugend marscherade förbi. Och jag frågade mig, varför får jag inte vara med? Jag begrep ju inte vad det betydde. Och det begrep de inte heller då. Så man kan bli diskriminerad av väldigt många orsaker. Man kan ha fel hudfärg, man kan ha fel tro, man kan tillhöra fel nationalitet. Så diskriminering är en mycket allmän företeelse. Senare, som 12-åring, fick jag besked i slutet av 4-5 skolåret att jag fick inte mera gå i skolan i Flatå. Det fanns ingen judisk skola i närheten. Så på grund av detta skickade min mamma mig till Berlin, och i Berlin fick jag vara i ett Bauch som Waisenhaus. För min fader hade dött när jag var 4 år gammal. Och då var jag alltså utan far och därför kunde jag vara där, annars hade det inte gått. Och i detta hus var det alltså Bauch, grundare av Waisenhauset, hade som sin idé att ersätta föräldrahemmet för de barn som inte hade en eller 2 föräldrar kvar. Och detta var en privat stiftelse och vi hade det underbart. Naturligtvis, man fick inte bli slagen och man hade konsert, man hade litteratur, man hade allt vad man kunde tänka sig. Och det var, jag betecknade det som på det bruna havet. Vi märkte ingenting vad som föregick utanför. Vi hade vi var fördelat på olika skolor och det intressanta var att vi hade en folkskola bredvid oss. Och vi gick förbi det och vi korsade vägen med barnen från folkskolan. Vi hörde aldrig något ont ord. Jag vet inte om det berodde på deras lärare eller närheten av detta barnhemmet. I alla fall, vi blev aldrig på något sätt illa behandlat av de kristliga skolbarn. Man kan... Det beror mycket på föräldrarna, det beror mycket på lärarna. Hur människor uppfostras. Och jag tycker det är ett väldigt stort problem att föräldrar och samhället inte lägger tillräckligt värde på att alla människor är lika och det finns inga skillnader. Och om man lär ut det till småbarn och när de växer upp så har man ett samhälle som diskriminering inte äger rum. Efter min tid i Auerbach så gick i skolan i Rickestrasse så kom jag ville bli arkitekt som barn och den enda möjligheten fanns ju inte för barn av judiska föräldrar. Så att efter jag slutade folkskolan så började i en byggnadsskola och lärde mig muraryrket. Och det var egentligen en mycket, det var lotterivinst kan man säga. För nazisterna, när deportationen började i Berlin så ställde man tillbaka hantverkare och folk som kunde arbeta i fabrikerna. Efter 2,5 år i denna skolan blev skolan stängd av Gestapo och jag som enda lärling blev anställd av den judiska församlingen i Berlin tillsammans med läraren i teori och praxis. Vi var alltså 3 murare och gjorde reparationsarbeten i de judiska husen. Ett halvt år senare kom Gestapo och det inte bara Gestapo utan det var SD, säkerhetsdienst, det var toppen av Gestapo. Kom och begärde att de judiska hantverkare som vi var 12 av olika yrken anställda av församling övertogs av Gestapo men församlingen fick betala vår lön. Och därigenom att jag kom som murare till Gestapon kunde jag vänta mig att vi blev de sista i deportationerna. Och så var också fallet. Den 27 februari 1943 samlade man ihop de sista i Berlin levande judar och deporterade dem. Det var en fabrikaktion. Man hämtade dem ur fabrikerna, från arbetsplatserna. Men bara vi som jobbade hos Gestapo fick vara kvar. Och som tur som man behövde ha var det en kväll som vi blev flyttad från ena lägenheten. Man flyttade inte, man blev flyttad. Och nästa morgon när jag kom till arbetet så var det ingen där av mina kollegor. Och då kom den arbetsledaren ut och sa, vad gör du här? Då sa jag, är de andra redan inne? Nej, de blev hämtade i natt. Det var vår tur att vi kvällen innan hade flyttat. Och de hade inte våra nya adresser. Så han sa, jag går in och frågar vad som ska hända med det. Och då sa jag, okej, gå in och fråga. Och när han hade gått in så sprang eller åkte hem och sa till min fru, och då var vår äldsta son 5 veckor gammal. Ta några blöjor och någonting vad du behöver och in i barnvagn och väck härifrån. Och hon åkte till Leipzig. Hon hade en mor i Leipzig som var gift med i andra äktenskap med en kristen man. Och det var därigenom lite skyddat. Och dit åkte min fru med barn. Och jag stannade kvar i Berlin. Försökte skaffa lite livsmedel och hade tagit mig in i en egentligen förseglad lägenhet som tillhörde tidigare en systerparet som var deporterade, och det var ett segel på dörren att man inte kunde komma in. Jag tog mig in där, och det var jag några dagar sedan åkte jag också till Leipzig. Hela den tiden som vi sen levde illegalt, och det var 25 månader, var det tack vare att vi överlevde. Jag säger alltid, det finns 4 pelare som är basen för en överlevnad. Det är, man är fräck, man är inte rädd, man har goda vänner och man har tur. Och det hade vi alla de där 4 sakerna hjälpte oss att överleva den där tiden. Och vår yngre son är född i den illegala tiden. Också det var en helt stor undantag. Man kan säga att tack vare de människor som inte följde Hitler och hans råd och anvisningar, tack vare dem kunde vi överleva. Och därför är det så viktigt att man kan göra motstånd mot det som man anser är orättvist.
In 2 parts. In part 1 I will talk about potentiality, and in part 2 I will talk about sleep. What I aim to show tonight is that potentiality creates space for grasping the ontological character of passivity, and that sleep, which is rooted in passivity, is a phenomenon that reveals the two-foldedness of the being of human beings. Part 1. Socrates is sleeping, but Aristotle assures us that when he wakes up, he will still be able to contemplate. Aristotle is able to tell us this because of the way that he understands dynamis. dynamis is a common ancient Greek term that signifies capacity when it is related to change, or potentiality when it is related to matter and substance. Dynamis is contrasted with and also subjugated to energia, which means activity or actuality. Reality contains for Aristotle different kinds of being, but also different ways of being. These different ways of being are expressed by dynamis and energia. Aristotle defends the importance of dynamis against those who neglect its existence. These are called actualists. An actualist would hold that when Socrates is sleeping, he does not possess the capacity of contemplation. Only when he is in actuality contemplating is he able to contemplate. Non-being can never, for these actualists, birth being. Aristotle criticizes the actualist stance since it fails to account for becoming and change. For Aristotle, Socrates can both be napping and thinking simultaneously yet differently. Socrates is allowed to possess both being and non-being. This non-being is not absolute non-being, it is a way of being, understood in terms of the not yet. This non-being is potentiality. Unexercised capacities are not obliterated by the absence of actuality for Aristotle. If Socrates was able to contemplate when falling into sleep, he will still be able to contemplate when falling out of it. When something is possible, it is not impossible. Impossibility entails for Aristotle the possibility of potentiality to be or not be. Dynamis has ontological aspects it is connected to being. Aristotle asks when a thing is potentially. When is something potentially a person? At what point is Socrates in potentiality? The seed, he writes, is not yet potentially a person since it needs to fall in something else and change. Aristotle insists that causal chains cannot be extended indefinitely. He insists that we need to be careful in determining the origin of potentiality. Unlike actuality, potentiality is a manifold place harboring a multitude of possibilities and ways of existing. Potentiality has the potential of coming to be, ceasing to be, letting be, and letting not be. For Heidegger, Aristotle's critique of actualism prepares us for grasping this ontological aspect of dynamis as dynaton ine, to be in potentiality. Heidegger organizes the difference between the Aristotelian and the actualist positions in terms of having, dynamin erschein, or enactment, energin. This distinction reveals an understanding of being in terms of presence and absence, corresponding to enactment and withdrawal. Not practicing a capacity does not entail that it disappears, but that it is suspended. Suspension clarifies that potentiality can't be equated with non-being, but that enactment and cessation are two fundamental ways in which we are and express our existence. Giorgio Agamben argues that the way of being suggested by potentiality is deeply embedded in the being of human beings. Dynamis reveals an aspect of humanity that Western philosophy, since Aristotle, has strived to remain oblivious of. Potentiality is also closely tied to what Agamben calls fundamental passivity. Passive potentiality welcomes non-being and suffers its own non-being. Potentiality can both be and not be, since it carries within itself a privation. This privation is not mere lack, but the presence of an absence. Actuality must be able to envelop this double sense of potentiality, and potentiality always holds the possibility to not become actual. Part 2. When Socrates is not asleep, he is awake. All animals, rational and otherwise, are for Aristotle always either asleep or awake. But sleepfulness and wakefulness do not pertain to other beings, since these ways of being are dependent on consciousness. Aristotle writes in his treatise on sleep that rest is necessary and beneficial, and since in the light of the facts sleep is metaphorically called rest, it follows that the object of sleep is to preserve animal life. But the end of an animal is the state of waking. End quote. Socrates needs his sleep to be able to contemplate, but his sleep is not the goal of sleeping. The goal of sleeping is wakefulness. Even though Aristotle insists on the importance of potentiality in sleep, he continuously persists in his opinion that actuality is superior to potentiality in every imaginable way, and that wakefulness is better than sleepfulness. Contrary to Aristotle, Merleau-Ponty suggests that sleep is not only a state of conservation which prepares us for wakefulness, but that there are lessons to be learned from our being in the world expressed by sleepfulness. Sleep might be articulated by a verb, Merleau-Ponty observes, but it is not an act. Sleep is a phenomenon that belongs to passivity. Merleau-Ponty demonstrates the passive character of sleep through the example of trying to make yourself fall asleep with an act of will. This always proves counterproductive. I can't cause sleep through willing it, since the active consciousness that reigns over our wakeful life has no power over phenomena that are rooted in passivity, such as sleep. Our relationship to sleep is better characterized in terms of a lending. I can surrender myself to sleep, but I can't guarantee that sleep will embrace me. Awaiting sleep, I occupy my conscious self by setting the stage for this lending. I lie down in a specific position, I close my eyes, I try not to focus on one distinct thought, but to remain in the interval between many. When taken by sleep, our being in the world understood through consciousness is no longer available or valuable. Sleep distances itself from the world, which allows, as Merleau-Ponty writes, for a way of being that the official personality of our waking selves diverts us from. Sleep is impossible to understand when the being of human beings is determined solely by actuality. Sleep then becomes death. Through insisting on the importance of dynamism within ontology, Aristotle creates space for grasping the passive aspects of our being in the world, such as sleep. Sleep is not absence of being, it is a way of being rooted in passivity, which we can access through potentiality. Dynamism allows us to appreciate the being of human beings as necessarily two-folded. Since it is impossible, as Aristotle writes, for any animal to continue always sleeping, let us now, as time has come to re-enter wakefulness, follow Merleau-Ponty's incentive and refuse to rinse ourselves of the oniric wisdom taught to us by our sleepy selves. Let us try and stay true to the heterogeneity of being, that we all always already know from our own experiences of the passive phenomena that constitute our shared world. Re-entering wakefulness, let us remember that the being of human beings always already encompasses being as well as letting be, wakefulness as well as sleepfulness, speech as well as silence, activity, and always passivity. That is true passivity, passivity.
Here at this stage in the area of the museum, it's 12 o'clock, we have to leave. These areas are moved to the restaurant outside. Oh, and apparently they've got really nice. Okay, so maybe this is the consequence of climate change.
Listen to my very quick talk, I hope. You hope too? Well, first thing I want to do is just to explain why this weird title, because I think maybe most of you are not familiar with the very word of provincializing. It's in fact a reference to a book published in 2000 by the Indian historian Pierre Charbonnier. The book was called Provincializing Europe. And it's a major book in the history of history. Well, the idea of this book was to raise the question how to conceive emancipation and social movements outside Europe. How to conceive social critique without mobilizing our very Western concepts like class struggle, reason, history itself, society. Pierre Charbonnier tried to show that we cannot take for granted those kind of very Western concepts, and especially when we try to use them to talk about social struggle that happened outside the geographical and historical area where those concepts were forged, were constructed. So that's why the title of the book, Provincializing Europe. It means that our concepts that we thought about like universal concepts are very situated. They are very proper to our own historical and conceptual experience. Well, that's the very general idea that Pierre Charbonnier tried to develop in this book, which is the major book of the post-colonial studies movement. Now, how does it relate to our concern about nature, ecology, and climate change? I think it is very relevant to our concern and for ecological thought, because one of the major concepts we use when we think about ecology is, of course, nature. And there are very many reasons to think about nature as a very Western concept, as a concept that is deeply grounded in our own historical, intellectual, and material history. So, it is maybe not so much an intuitive and universal concept, and maybe more of a very situated, very particular concept embedded in our European, Western historical experience. And in a way, it is also an imperial concept related to the idea that Europe should enlighten the rest of the world. Okay. Now, second step of my presentation, I'd like to point out two issues related to our common use of this very problematic concept of nature. Well, first issue is about the very definition of what we consider as nature. I'd like to give you two different but correlated definitions. First, we can conceive of nature as a collection of non-human beings subordinated to universal laws. which means that they are subordinated to laws that human reason, human mind, can reach and express through symbols, mostly through mathematics and geometry. Nature, for us modern Western people, is also a collection of non-human resources available for use, appropriation, and transformation. So, I think this is, in very simple and general terms, the twofold definition of what we consider intuitively as nature. Non-human beings subordinated to universal physical laws, and non-human beings ready for economic use, transformation, and juridic appropriation. Okay. So, nature is a free gift for us to use, and an undisputed object of consideration for objective science, for experimental and objective sciences. Well, but at the same time, I think we can accept that this very same nature is also a very disputed object, not so much a non-disputed object, more like a disputed object, and the character of free gift we can give to nature is also disputed. Think about the intensity of the debate between church and astronomy and physics in the 15th and 16th century. The very idea that nature is an object, was very much disputed, and it's still disputed today. It is the same for the idea that nature is a free gift for us to use and appropriate. Because of course, if you think about how much, the economic problem disputed in the 18th and 19th century, and again 20th century, we can accept that the way we share nature, the way we break the limits of nature, the way we relate to improvement and scarcity, have, of course, given way to a lot of debates. So, nature, and that's one of the main problems of this concept, is both an undisputed object, a universal, intuitive object, and, you can say, a battlefield for science, religion, politics, economy, law. So, nature is, of course, embedded, deeply embedded in political discourses, in political controversies. That was the first point I wanted to make. The second one is more closely related to my topic of ecology and climate change. The second paradox of nature is that the ecological thought, as we all know it, aims at redefining our collective relationship with nature. But in doing so, ecological thought is dependent on the conceptual and political assumption of modern Western nature, of the modern Western concept of nature. There are many examples or case studies that could show how much ecological thought is grounded in the concept of nature. I just take one. Think about the opposition we very intuitively make between production and protection. Nature is either something we should produce, out of it some commodities, or something we should protect as something which is outside the realm of economical exchange. Okay. But when we say that nature has to be protected, we go on with the idea that the relationship between nature and society is non-symmetrical, asymmetrical. Because when we decide to protect a certain part of nature, like this kind of very monumental nature you have on the wall here, you decide to put aside one kind of nature that is kind of sacred or protected, and one kind of nature that is given to the human appropriation or human economical appropriation. So, in a way, protecting nature, which is one of the main concepts of the classical ecological thought, goes on with the idea that the relationship is asymmetrical between we and nature, that we can take control over a portion of land or physical space and put it aside our own economical affairs. Well, this is, I think, an unexpected extension of the Western, modern, or even colonial conceptual apparatus, because we thought that protecting nature was about breaking with the limitations of our modern conceptions, but it's not, or it's not completely. So, ecology, in a way, still belongs to the modern worldview, to the idea that nature is separated from society and the collective of human beings. And that's why we are challenged by the idea of giving way to different natures. We have to think about nature outside those assumptions of modern universalism and objectivism. Well, that's the heart of my argument here. And I just want to show you two kinds of displacements of the modern and Western concept of nature. The first is the idea that nature is not an undisputed object available for appropriation, but it is rather a place of livelihood, a landscape, a site of collective memory, a site of material and ideological attachment, and even sometimes a ground for identity. In this kind of thinking, which is clearly a challenge to the modern Western concept of nature as an objective and universal thing, homogeneous. This is the first displacement of the concept of nature we can find out there. But this first displacement is itself presents ambiguity. You might know that this conception of nature as a place of livelihood, a place of identity, is defended by many social movements, many peasant movements, who try to consider land, to try to reclaim land as a means of subsistence, a means of livelihood, and not only something reduced to market relationships, to commodity relationships. But in a way, this conception of nature as a place for identity is also claimed by a new politics of local identity, which can be symbolized by the wall Trump tries to build between his country and Mexico. That is, I think, one of the major ambiguities of contemporary politics as they are related to nature or to ecology. Reclaiming nature as something local, something to the ground, something which can be said as a site for identity, is claimed at the same time, but in a very different way, by political movement of the South, of the poor, of indigenous peasants. But it also resonates in new identity politics led by conservative leaders in the North who try to protect an economical advantage over the rest of the world. So, we have the first displacement of the concept of nature, but this one is very problematic. Now, the second displacement of the concept of nature would be to consider nature not as an object, but as a subject. Some of you might know that since the 90s, social anthropology realized that indigenous communities, mostly in Amazonia, sometimes in the Arctic, sometimes in Asia, those indigenous communities do not live by the European standard of dualism, of the opposition between nature and society. They often conceive nature or non-human beings as persons, which means that those beings, animals, plants, or a river, for example, can communicate with us, and that we can communicate with those beings, which means that the relation between us and those beings is a relation of reciprocity. What we can do to them, they can do to us. This is a very non-modern conception of nature and of our relationship with nature. So this is the second major displacement of the concept of nature. Depends on the author, but this conception of nature is called animism or perspectivism, depending on which is the anthropologist you like more, but it's not our problem here. One of the very famous examples of this nature as a person paradigm is what you might have heard about, the concept of the Pachamama, which is one of the major concepts of the Pan-Amerindian thought all over South America. It's a Quechua word expressing the idea that outside nature is not an object, is not a resource. It is kind of a person with which we are entertaining a relation of reciprocity. Okay, so those are two major displacements of the concept of nature. One, conceiving nature as a local ground for livelihood and identity with the political ambiguity I underline. The other, conceiving nature as a person and not as an object. So we are witnessing what we might call a proliferation of nature. That's why I call this title, I gave this title to my talk, The Many Natures. We are living now in a world where we can find many natures over the same planet. Okay, but now are we condemned to accept a shallow relativism where every community has its own nature, where sociological and conceptual framings of the world are just coexistent without really engaging in what we might call diplomatic relations? Well, I think we cannot accept this shallow relativism for a very simple question. It is because the climate issue makes that position impossible, because climate change is a common concern for humanity, or rather than humanity. It's a common concern for different communities assembled not by an abstract idea of the universal, but by the necessity to react and to protect themselves against this threat that climate change is. So we cannot accept to live on the same planet, but on different conceptual and social worlds. We have to find, and that's what lies behind contemporary climate diplomacy. We have to find a common ground. We have to find how to relate to nature properly and how to talk with different communities than our own about this common concern. And that cannot be done with the idea that nature is a non-disputed object, universal, intuitive, and in fine, something that we, modern collective, have invented between the 16th and the 19th century. Okay. So that was the very simple and general idea I wanted to share with you tonight.
And we have started to talk with a lot of people about what could we do there. And I also started to realize that working with circus in extreme environments really gives me something else than just doing it normally, and also together with other circus performers, to explore new ways of doing the circus practice. So I explored some kind of creative adaptation in the circus practice that is caused by working in extreme environments. And I work together with circus performers in an environment that limits our ability to perform our circus disciplines the way we used to. This is done by putting the practice in situations with greater external forces, such as exposure to weather-related phenomena, by creating encounters with natural and artificial changes, for example in radiation, in temperature, in pressure, wind, humidity, such as clouds. We will find new ways of working and thinking around the disciplines. By switching the focus from the skill of the circus performer to the performer's attempts to adapt to an ever-changing environment, a different shape of the practice is visible. A shape where skills and experience of the circus performer plays an important role even though the form presented is transformed to something else. If there's another film clip, I could show it also. Because it's a nice experiment of an indoor situation with wire walking also, that we're doing right now. It's not quite working yet. So, on top of these projects, I'm also trying to develop some kind of interactive performance on platforms in the airspace. And how do we think about the environment, our lifestyles and our dreams after experiencing the collaboration that we do thousands of meters above the ground? It's already in the making, some ideas, some concepts. I'm looking for new ones. And let's investigate the literal meaning of that metaphor when we are hanging out with each other on different platforms in the cloud. And I think that we might like it. Let's explore new ways of inhabiting and experiencing the cloud while creating circus from, in, and with thin air. Thanks.
Reads, I who ingests what she reads, I whose language is not her own, since language is not something one can own. I am responsible for this text, the I and its accountability. I, as artist and researcher, I, in a specific point, I, me, I, as you, I, as body, as in skeleton and flesh, blood, I quote Susan Howe. I want my own house. I'm you and you're the author. I have retained Emily Dickinson's eccentricities of spelling and punctuation, writes Howe and later cites, I saw no way, the heavens were stitched. I felt the columns close. The earth reversed her hemispheres. I touched the universe. I is itself infinite layers, writes Trinte Minha. I have taken the liberty to change line breaks to make the citations form the pattern I want them to form. So, as a researcher and as an artist, you are often asked to offer a reflection on your work and your process. In fact, the metaphor of reflection is so built into the linguistic context that it has come to mean any kind of critical or analytical behavior. It has bothered me. Within the ideas regarding the so often requested reflection, there lurks an expected separation between the work and the analytical or thinking aspects. The reflection as a metaphor comes with this ballast. To see something in a mirror, a certain distance is required. But what are these reflective aspects that could hold their distance to the work itself? And when and how would this other mode of writing that allows you to magically, with a sudden gesture, take a step back, separate yourself from the work, the world, and reflect, set in? In the book Time and the Other, anthropologist Johannes Fabian brings up the recurring turn to reflectivity within anthropology. he writes. There is now an anthropology which is fascinated with symbolic mirrors, signs, signifiers, symbols, lining the inside walls of cultures, reflecting an all-interpretive discourse inside the confines of the chosen object. These reflections give to an observer the illusion of objectivity, coherence, and density. Playing further with the thought of these mirrors, he points out that placed at propitious angles, fördelaktiga vinklar, they have the power to miraculously make real objects vanish. In the picture Fabian paints, the reflecting researcher takes on the role of an illusionist. In charge of and playing with mirrors, these researchers create whole sets of reflective image spectacles to their own liking. Historian of science Donna Haraway writes, reflexivity has been recommended as a critical practice, but my suspicion is that reflexivity, like reflection, only displaces the same elsewhere, setting up worries about copy and original and the search for the authentic and really real. Reflexivity is always also a self-reflexivity and its preoccupations in plain sight. It is in its lingering quest for the really real, it turns to vision, to the mirror image, and to the eye. Bouncing back at the artist/researcher is the figure and the process of the artist/researcher. This is an artist/researcher aware of the importance of examining her own positions and behavior. She has set up the mirrors and therein sees herself and herself and herself and her actions. Since the work she does is self-reflexive, she is doing good work, and oh, how she likes what she sees. I, shiny surface, reflected again, I, as distinct from the other, shine, reflection, shine, I, they, that, it, and so it continues. There is a problem here. It concerns the whole lake. Is, winter, winter. Ice, or is. The whole lake, or the frozen surface. Is winter mirroring, or bent while broken. And then another, or yet another deviant. Deep surface mirroring, or wave, the ice heard. Where some angles slip, or where this voice isn't. Altogether, only a few, or this, or even that, is. Hela sjön är, speglar vinter att spegla. Och sen igen en, djup ytas spegling. Där några vinklar försvinner. Sammanlagt endast ett fåtal är den frusna ytan. Böjd samtidigt bruten, ännu en eljest, våg de hörda isarna, där den här rösten inte är, den här eller ens den is. Do I have 5 minutes more? Great, okay. So literary theorist Harald Gaski gave a talk at the Sami Cultural Center Trapje in Umeå. Parts of the talk concerned the yoik Irene by Sami musician Sofia Janok. The yoik, explains Gaski, portrays a woman named Irene. It starts with a place name, Sarevuomi, describing where the reindeer of a group of families are. It continues with Uabir, an earmark that tells which family is the reindeer keeper. And then, only way into the yoik, appears the name of the person, Ante Nils Duoma ber Ante Irene. And this name, Gasky explains, states a succession of ancestors until it only at the very end states the first name of the one portrayed. The point that Gasky makes is that a person's identity does not necessarily reside in her name and might be carried poorly by pronouns. It may be more relevant to come at a human being by way of her relations to places, landscapes, and people, communities. And what that might mean differs not only in regard to a specific person, but to a people, a history. In a settler colonial state such as Sweden, one of the important aspects of the colonial project is to make that which was and those who were there before invisible, to in some way make these disappear. A resistance to that kind of colonial practice means surviving. It means keeping on living and keeping the histories, practices, and ideas of that life visible and audible. When Gasky speaks of Janok's yoik, it becomes apparent how it depicts Irene and at the same time works as a historical and geographic record. Furthermore, through the very way Irene is performed, the yoik performs ways of relating to identity and its connectedness to the rest of the world. Mountains, trails, or fire, relationships to people, to whole villages or cities might say more than any name, walks through writings, through lakes, trees, moss, grass might draw contours. The place is, again, inevitable, impossible to encircle. Someone or someone's, if ice diffracts, if steps, identification, or just no. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there because I won't be able to go into the whole kind of diffraction part, which is a huge part where I try to sort of where I try to talk about that basically, and I go to Karen Barad and Donna Haraway again, and but it's just too much, and I please you know you can buy the book later. It's called The Coming Shall, Det kommande skallet. So thank you.
Betyder det? Har de gått närmare eller längre bort? Vad tror ni? Kanske lite närmare. Då ser det ut som att man kommer nära, ja, då blir det större. Precis. Är det någonting annat som har hänt på den bilden med 2 bebisar? Kullen har blivit lite större, har man gått närmare kanske. Den fortsätter att röra sig, ser ni? Det är fortfarande streck. Ja. Ja.
Det är bara en bebis som har en streck.
Ja, ser ni här? Att det är en av bebisarna som har streck. Det är bara en av bebisarna som rör sig. Vad händer på den sista bilden? För där har det ju hänt. Yes.
Hon blev typ en fågel. Ser ut som lite.
Hon blev en fågel. Och är det någonting mer eller var det bara det? Bebisen har blivit något annat. Hur hänger det här ihop? Herman?
Alltså, hon står ju på typ samma del av vägen, fast den är närmare. Men kullen är mindre.
Hängde ni med? Hängde ni också med? Okej. Vad är det som har hänt med kläderna då? Vad är det för slags kläder? Eller är det kläder? Brukar man ha på sig sådana kläder? Attila? Man brukar inte ha på sig sådana kläder, va? Det liknar en kokong. Vet alla vad det är? En kokong. Vad brukar vara i en kokong? Typ larver, fjärilar som ska bli fjärilar. De får bo i kokong innan de ska födas. Ja. Okej. Den sista bilden har det ju hänt någonting. Det var 2 bebisar och det är typ bara en slags bebis kanske på ryggen, men vi vet ju inte faktiskt. Det här är ju som en berättelse som väcker många olika idéer hos oss, eller hur? Vi vet inte vad som har hänt. När Marie-Louise Ekman, som har målat de här, när hon gör sin konst, då brukar de fundera väldigt mycket på det här. Hur kommer det sig att vuxenvärlden, alltså hur vuxna är med varandra och sådär, är på ett sätt och barnvärlden är på ett annat sätt? Ni är ju barn, eller hur? Ni gör ju saker kanske som inte vuxna gör, eller hur? Och vuxna, de kanske gör saker som inte ni gör. Är det någonting på bilderna som bara vuxna brukar göra? Som är typiskt vuxengrejer, vuxenvärlden? Okej, vänta, jag ska bara repetera för det var så många grejer. Jag säger igen. Vuxna, vad var det du sa först? De lagar mat, det kanske är där. Nästa. Håller på med barnen, och det finns ju barn. Två saker. Barn, vad gör de? Finns det några saker som är från barnvärlden här? Som barn brukar göra? Eller är det bara vuxenvärlden på de här bilderna? Vad tänker ni? Är det bara vuxenvärlden här? Hundar då? Är det någon som har ett djur hemma? Herman, du har ett djur. Har du en hund? Du har en katt. Barn kan väl ta hand om katter? Du kan ju ta hand om katten också, eller hur? Så det är ju inte bara vuxen, va? Utan också barnvärld. Barn kan ju ta hand om grejer också. Det kan ju ni göra, eller hur? Ni kan ju ta hand om sånt. Men att ta hand om bebisar, kan man göra det när man är barn? Ja, men det är inte det lättaste. Varför är det inte det lättaste? Ja, och hur många barn vet allt som ska göras med bebisar? Nej, precis. Man kanske ska tänka på andra saker. Hörrni, det här kanske blir lite som mest vuxenvärlden. Men vet ni vad jag tänkte att vi ska göra? Vi ska också kolla lite grann på barnvärlden. Och vi ska sätta oss och titta på hela den här väggen. Är det någonting i alla de här tre bilderna som ni tycker är gemensamt? Alltså som är typ samma eller lika i alla fall? Varje bild är det någon som står och öppnar munnen och... Vad sa du sen? Det kommer saker ur munnen. Håller ni med om det? Kan alla se det som, vad heter du? Marianne sa. Att det är samma grej i varje bild. Det är att det är någon som gapar med munnen och det kommer, där är de och där är de. Vad tror ni? Är de på väg ut från munnen eller in i munnen? Hur många tror att det är på väg ut från munnen? Räcker upp en hand. Hur många tror in i munnen?
Alltså jag tycker att den där tavlan, den där rosa, jag tycker att det ser ut som att de
kommer inåt, in i munnen. Hur skulle det kännas för er om ni fick bestick in i munnen? Det är en jobbig grej. Ja, det ser ut lite grann som att det är knivar och gafflar, tycker jag. Vad tycker ni? Eller är det någonting annat? Knivar och gafflar. Så här då, vad är det som kommer ut eller in i munnen här? Vad tror ni? Vad är det som egentligen händer på den här bilden? Vi börjar med den. Attila.
En sak är en gaffel längst ner.
En sak är en gaffel längst ner, fast den är lite böjd.
Ja.
Den är liksom lite konstig. Okej, är det någonting mera? Vad tror ni har hänt? Varför blir det sådär på bilden? När brukar man se ut sådär? När brukar man göra sådär? Vad tror ni? Ja. Exakt. När man kräks. Just det. Kanske någon som kräks. Och där då? Är det någonting som har hänt med den där bilden som inte finns på den bilden? Två barn med jättekonstiga munnar. Varför är det två barn? Vad tänker ni andra? Varför skulle det kunna vara barn? Ja. Det kanske de är mindre än den som är bredvid. Attila?
Jag tänker att där barnen,
de barnen har växt upp. För det var två bebisar i den fjärde bilden, kommer ni ihåg? Då var den här skuggan gick och höll i en arm, två bebisar. Det kanske är de som har blivit större. Vad sa du? Ja. Det kanske är en serie som fortsätter liksom åt det hållet och sen fortsätter den åt det här hållet. Bra. De här barnen då, hur verkar de se ut att må? Hur verkar de stå? Ja, hur ser de ut i ansiktet liksom? Kan man se hur de känner sig? Liksom? Vad skulle ni tro? Hur skulle ni känna om ni stod bredvid en vuxen som kräktes kanske ut gafflar och knivar? Hur skulle ni känna då? Ja.
Obehag.
Obehag. Ja. Rädd. Förvånad.
Jag tror inte jag skulle tycka det. Jag skulle skratta lite.
Du skulle bara börja skratta liksom, och bara säga, vad är det som händer?
Det är lite kul.
Ja. Visar de någon känsla, tycker ni? Visar de någon känsla? De står med så här. Eller? Och bara kollar rakt fram. Det är lite konstigt, va? Tänk om det skulle hända för er. Då skulle man ju bli, kanske som du, skratta eller någon blir så här rädd. Men de bara står. Ja. Ja. Just det, den står och håller. De kanske är syskon, eller något, va? Kanske tycker om varandra. Ja, just det. Lillebror och storebror, absolut. Den förvandlar vuxenvärlden till barnvärlden. Varför då? För att det blir mer färger. Hur kom det sig att den vuxenvärlden var den här färgen som var grå? Hur tänker du? Brukar den ofta vara grå? Ja. Hänger ni andra med? Och att det kanske är så som Ester säger, att det kan vara någon som börjar måla som gör så att vuxenvärlden blir till barnvärlden istället. För att, som Ester sa, det kommer mer färger. Kolla på de här bilderna ni kollar på här. Ni verkade tycka att det här var vuxenvärlden-bilder. För att det handlade mycket om som vuxna brukar göra. Så. Och där var det ju en färg som finns. Ser ni det? Är det någon av er som någon gång har målat över någonting, alltså typ en vägg eller någonting? Alltså att ni har målat på en riktig vägg? Är det någon av vuxna som har gjort det också? Som har målat på en riktig vägg? Ja. Hur brukar det vara om man målar på en vägg som man inte får måla på? Har ni gjort det? Ingen? Ja, jag har också gjort det. Hur brukar det bli då när liksom man gör det och så kanske man inte fick det och så kanske någon vuxen ser det och så? Vad brukar hända? Typ? Om man verkligen har gjort det. Ja. Man blir utskälld. Varför blir man utskälld? För att man inte borde ha gjort det. Ja. Var det samma? Vad heter du? Maxine? Maxine?
Ja.
Okay. Hon sa att man kan bli utskälld och så av vuxna för att man inte får. Var det du skulle säga? Vad tror ni då? Blir det bättre, trodde ni ju? Att ni trodde att det skulle vara bättre om man målade med allting med olika färger. Vuxenvärlden, den var ju så himla tråkig värld. Så det är ju bara en enda färg. Väldigt kul. Är det någonting annat som man inte får göra när man är ett barn? Det här vet ju ni bäst. Jag är ju inte barn längre. Vad får man göra när man inte... Vad får man inte göra när man är ett barn? Ja. Dricka alkohol. Köra bil, ta sönder saker. Dra mot annat. Vad sa du? Röka. Allt det som ni säger, visst, det mesta är ju vuxengrejer som vuxna får göra, eller hur? Ja. Är det någonting barn får göra som inte vuxna får göra? Leka. Vuxna brukar vara sådär, eller? Ja. Yes. Karuseller, just det. Oftast kanske barn som gör det. Om de är tillräckligt långa, man måste vara rätt lång. Typ 1,40. Tror jag. Det var flera händer. Vad var det? Samma och... Hur skulle det vara om alla vuxna lekte hela tiden? Eller lekte ännu mer? Skulle det...
Let me finish by saying a few words about the development of writing. That's a very good example to say something about how our minds have been shaped by the tools. So the first writing systems didn't have any letters or anything. The first writing systems were, well, historically, they're about 5,000 years ago. When you were sending goods to somebody else over a long distance, you needed somehow that to make sure that the person who was transporting your sheep or your wine or whatever didn't steal anything. So along with your goods, you sent a clay container with tokens inside. So there were 3 sheep and 5 jars of wine, big small items inside the clay thing. And that was the first symbolic use of things as receipts. And then the receiver could check that there were 3 sheep and 5 containers of 5 jars of wine when the goods arrived. Then later these clay tokens were turned into pictures, and later these pictures became the writing system. But anyway, the origin of the writing system was for communicating in trade systems. And only later was it used to start writing stories. And writing stories is comparatively late in the thing, and writing down thoughts and so on. And for a very long time there was a special occupation to be a writer. And only these people could read and write. Very few people could read and write. The ability to read and write among everybody is a very recent phenomenon. It's still not universal. The writing system is an artifact. It's a tool for helping us thinking. It started as a tool for commerce. Now we use it as a tool for everything. People say writing, and you make notes, and you send letters, you send all kinds of messages. You write stories, you write reports. Writing has become a kind of universal tool for a lot of thinking. But we can start speaking and communicating without anybody who's brought up in a normal society starts speaking and talking and so on. That comes automatically. That's really universally human. But you have to learn to write. And it can be shown that this changes your brain. Writing has an effect on the structure of the brain. There is, among others, this has been studied by neuroscientists, among others, Carl Magnus Pettersson at Karolinska Institute. He's shown that parts of the brain become thicker. The corpus callosum becomes thicker when we learn to read and write. So this capacity actually changes your brain. So that's a very down-to-earth consequence of how artifacts change the way we think. It doesn't only change the way we think, it actually changes our brains. Okay, I've given you now some examples of how we created tools for helping us think. I've said a little bit about the philosophical background. on situated and embodied cognition. And I've said a few words about how these artifacts really change our minds. So keep on thinking with things. Thank you very much.
The question is, human enhancement or progress is a paradox. It's a paradox because, of course, if there is an enhancement in a way, there should be a progress. Enhancement means the development, quantitative in a way, of the capabilities of the human species. Enhancement is translated into French as augmentation, it is the growth, maybe in Swedish, I don't know.
Förbättring, alltså människoförbättring, men det finns ingen riktigt. Enhancement term.
Which is qualitative in a way.
Enhancement term. There's no good sort of terminology in Swedish. You can talk about medicinsk förbättring, medicinsk teknologisk förbättring. Okay. Förbättringstermen, it hasn't really been sort of introduced thoroughly. Yeah.
The question of translation is not secondary. It brings to the heart of the problem. Is enhancement a neutral growth of human powers with technologies that will bring us to new powers for perceiving, for thinking, for curing, for healing, for different human faculties? Or is it immediately a progress that is qualitative progress for justice, for health, for the quality of human life and not only the quantity of human powers? Or is it, as I would put it myself, a technique that is in itself a growth, but that can be used for either positive or negative uses, for positive purposes or for the growth too of the control of human beings, the dangerous uses of human techniques and so forth. Our guests are philosophers both of life and of practical ethics and politics. So we all know that the new techniques, the way we are cyborgs, the way we are enhanced with microphones, with glasses, with new devices in our brains and in our genes and in all our biological apparatus, these techniques are not good or bad in themselves, but according to the institutions that regulate them, maybe this is my point of view, of course, maybe you can discuss. The institutions that regulate them, the bioethical and biopolitical institutions that exploit them or regulate them. So the questions I wanted to put in the beginning of this discussion is, of course, a translation of the title is Human Enhancement to Progress. I would say it depends. It's not an evidence, and it's not obvious, and it's not also, of course, fatal that it's a regression or a progress, that it's a technique of control or of liberation. So I want to ask the three of you to help us define the guidelines between the dangerous and the positive uses of these enhancements that are coming to us. Maybe this metaphysical question would be, is human enhancement still human or going transhuman or post-human, or is it within humanity? But my hypothesis as an introduction is that we are still within humanity, because whatever comes supposedly beyond is still within the good or bad uses for human beings as such. But maybe you disagree.
Yes, I do. That is interesting at the beginning, because I think that the answer to the question, is human enhancement progress, is as obvious as it is trivial. The answer is yes, because literally enhancement, in German Verbesserung, is progress insofar enhancement as it is discussed in contemporary philosophy is understood as, or even defined as, producing beings with a not only different but better status and superior abilities and capabilities and functionings, producing them by means of medical or pharmaceutical or genetic engineering. When we or digital transformations, yes. But as obvious and as clear as the answer is, we still don't know the most interesting thing, and that is progress good? Is or under which conditions which progress is good? So I think that the real problem behind the question stresses the problem of relating the well-known idea of progress with a concept, a reasonable concept of good, of human good, or of human flourishing, well-being, and so forth. And this problem arises because the relations between the concept of progress and the concepts of human good seem to be quite tense and even problematic. On the one hand, and in everyday life, maybe even in everyday language, we tend to think that progress, every progress is a good thing, and at the same time we are sometimes aware that that there's a ambivalence in the history of progress. And my first thoughts are that maybe one illuminating or one interesting historical starting point for our discussion could be just the time before the Renaissance, which is called Nova Scientia, with the ideal of scientific and also of technical progress. And this ideal is concisely expressed in a famous book by Francis Bacon, Novum Organon, and there you find in the third aphorism the words scientia potestas est, what means knowledge or science, but knowledge is power. So the Nova Scientia, that is the new science, offered us a new method, not only to get to know that something is the case, but at the same time to know how to do something with that very thing that we come to know about the world. So there's a nexus between episteme and techne, or between science and technology, or knowledge and action. And I think that is a very powerful source for the affirmative account of progress. Progress as the idea that the world can become increasingly better by means or in terms of science and of technology, and then later of modernization, of democracy, of liberty, and so forth. And all this, I think, are powerful resources for the contemporary opponents of human enhancements, which have one leading question, and that is, why not the best? Why not go beyond therapy? Why not go beyond education and training and all these enhancement techniques that we know from history? So, just as a starter.
Thank you. I don't know how much time still you have with us. Maybe
20 minutes.
20 minutes, so it's fine. Thank you so much. So maybe you can hear what Frédéric and Etienne have to say, and then react to what they have to say. Just put one word in between. Is that, in a way, the difference I suggested between enhancement and progress, you put between progress and good. It's in a way you take distinction at another level, and it brings me back to the question you put of where to put the good. I suggested too that it's not only an essence, but the uses of the techniques and an enhancement. I don't know what both of you think about this discussion. Is it between the progress and good, or the good and bad uses of techniques? Maybe Frédéric and then Etienne.
Okay.
Is it on? Yes. Good. I mean, there are some distinctions to be made. You have made some already. I mean, we're discussing medical, technological enhancement, not enhancement in general, because, well, it's obvious that it's better to get better in a sense. So. But, I mean, there is the distinction between what is often called radical human enhancement and human enhancement more generally. Radical human enhancement is the idea that we will reach a state called the singularity when we will be able to upload the brain into a computer, and then we never have to die again. We can live on, you know, for eternity as computers, as machines, or something like that. And I would like to say from the beginning that I do not think that will ever happen because of how our bodies work, the brain especially. But if it was to become possible, I would be against that. So I'm against radical human enhancement because
so it wouldn't do progress.
No, because it wouldn't feel at all. So it would be pointless.
Because what exactly?
The machine wouldn't feel. You need a body to feel. So I think there's something in the body, in the passivity of the body, the way we enjoy to be bodies, that is sort of essential for a human good life. But if we get rid of radical human enhancement, which is probably not possible anyway, I think, but you never know. I think it's obvious that you have to look upon every case of sort of enhancement where some people claim to go beyond curing diseases or disorders or something like that, and you would have to ask in that specific case, is it better? Do we become better by enhancing this sort of personal, this human trait? And it could be different in different situations. I don't think there is a general answer. So that's the first thing I want to say. Well, the second. Yeah. And the third thing, and I think this is very important because I think a lot of bioethics that is done on enhancement is very much sort of, it's science fiction stuff. It's a lot about speculation, and it very rarely takes into account the societal, cultural, and also the capitalist context in which enhancements will be applied. And I think it's very important for us as philosophers also to address that context. Because if you look now upon how it happens when enhancements sort of get applied, it's very often that, of course, they're not launched as enhancements. They're launched as cures for various forms of disorders. Viagra for erectile, dysfunction. It's Ritalin for ADHD. It could be antidepressants for social anxiety disorder, etc., etc., etc. And I think it's rather probable that this will go on because that's the way the system is rigged, and that's the way pharmaceutical companies and other companies sort of launch their products. And even if they don't do that, even if they say this is really an enhancement, we can sort of plug in this into your brain and it will enhance your memories. You can remember 20 times more or something like that. I would not think that people would get this for free. I don't think so. I think it would be sold, and certain people might be able to access it, and not others. It would raise a lot of these sort of problems, and that has to be taken into account too when you discuss if human enhancement is progress. Yeah.
Thank you. So the same way we went into ethics and the question of the good through your intervention. Now we have the political and economical context, which you put set back for the question as opposed to the falsely metaphysical perspective of radical enhancement. So maybe Etienne, you want to add another perspective to what has been said on enhancement?
Maybe after what you said about radical enhancement, I think that we have to deal between two limits. There would be a low limit, which is represented by medical staff, all the question of treatment, therapeutic practices and devices in order to restore damaged function. And of course everybody agrees to say that it's a good thing. And the high limit would be the radical enhancements you spoke about. So the prospect of uploading our mind on the computers, and it seems bad science fiction, bad scenario of science fiction, and nobody cares about that practically in the usual life. And so the problem is to deal between those two limits, and the problem is that between those two limits we don't have, we are in search of philosophical fresh assessments, but we can't find them.
especially because we are divided most of the time between two opposite positions, two opposite statements. That's what I would call the genetic aporia. The genetic aporia. What do I mean by that? Genetic manipulations often produce two divided, two opposite attitudes. First, a technical manufacturing attitude or engineering attitude based on the fact that genetic stuff is a material stuff in a way. It's not organic stuff, it's material stuff. A material stuff offered to manipulation and to unlimited manipulation. But at the same time, the genetic issue leads to an opposite attitude, a defensive attitude, based on the fact that, on the implicit assumption that the genome is something sacred in us. The human genome would be something like the guardian of our human nature. And I think that all the metaphors of the writing, of the code, of the inscription are very important here to give the impression that something of our humanity has been written by someone in our genes and designed forever. So I think that the genetic issue, which is very important in all those debates, produces those two opposite attitudes, an artificialism in a way, and a defensive attitude like a religious and metaphysical attitude. And in general, philosophers try to avoid those two reefs, and they try to look for a happy medium between a metaphysical position, a defensive position, which say that our body is sacred and untouchable and inviolable, and we shouldn't touch to it. And the liberal supermarket and the liberal eugenics say that okay, we can do anything with this body, and it's very difficult to have a happy medium between those two limits. I think the main problem we see is the question of the progress, if there are progress or not, is that all those techniques are imitations of the core of our humanity. Of course, everybody here wants to have more memory. Everybody here wants to be more curious. Everybody here wants to be emotionally more stabilized and have a good mood, and the psychopharmaceutical means to stabilize humor, to regulate humor. Of course, everybody wants to be generous and peaceful, and so it is the core of our humanity which is concerned by that. But maybe an answer, a beginning of answer to that question, progress, is that shall we prefer the imitation or the original? Shall we prefer a human life which is supported by devices, which induces some passivity, because all the devices, all the electronical and material devices do the things, and we can be absent-minded. When I spoke about that in the previous conference, I think that okay, what are we going to lose when I'm in a foreign country and there is a GPS saying, okay, go ahead, stop, turn to the left, turn to the right. Do we want this kind of life, or do we want to have a map and saying, okay, I could go here? So I think there is no ethical response for that. Is it a progress or not? But there is a psychological answer for that. Psychological. Do we want an assisted life, an absent-minded life, active, passive life, or not? This is a psychological answer.
Thank you, Etienne. So, in fact, you summed up your point of view very forcefully. The endings, that is, you add what I would call also the imaginary, the representational, the psychological aspect that mankind has of itself as a third dimension after ethics and politics in a way. Can it be separated? That's a big question. You said everybody wants to be generous and peaceful. that's not so sure, maybe. So we have to. So the ethics maybe can come back in psychology also, but we have to let Elif answer. And unfortunately, you have to. There is this overlapping of your two lectures, but please take the time to
Yes,
react.
maybe I can just add two things to what is already said. And the first, what I find really interesting and also important is the somehow economical side or background of human enhancements, the question of or the problem of different access to these human enhancement techniques and the future. And there is a American philosopher, Robert Nozick, who imagined in something like a genetic supermarket where that would make a great variety of human enhancements available for whom? For
customers.
Yeah, not to all, but to those with the money. Market, and as maybe someone here knows, Nozick is not only a liberal but a libertarian philosopher. So he loves the market and the free market, and he thinks that it could be fine. This idea of a enhancement supermarket or a genetic supermarket could be fine then and if human enhancement techniques were as cheap as supermarket items used to be, and then you don't have to answer those psychological questions if you want to get enhanced. So just go and buy something. And I think the question here is if we can see and handle human enhancements similar to all these other goods that we can distribute or even fairly distribute by markets. So maybe this is the first thing, and the second has to do with these accounts of radical enhancements, that means of deep or transformative enhancements. I think I said that before, I think they fail to show why those radical transforming enhancements are good for us, not for posthumans, but for us as human beings. Why should we become not just only faster and stronger and smarter and healthier, but different transhumans or posthumans? And I have the impression that posthumanism is a kind of joke or a caricature of humanism because we really don't know how this position could achieve their ethical ends. They were talking about humanism, about liberty, about democracy, about tolerance for enhanced and not enhanced beings, about equality and justice and so on and so forth. But I mean, we don't have an idea how they could argue for this position. To sum up, I think we really can't say what posthuman beings or posthumans are, how they would live together, if they would have a kind of morality or not, maybe just a post-moral morality, I don't know, because this lies beyond our reason, our comprehension. And sometimes it is said that posthumanism is the most dangerous idea in the world, and I can't believe that. The most dangerous idea is and always has been not the idea of transforming humans, but of dehumanizing and of tyranny. So this is maybe a kind of propaganda for their own position, just to say it is so dangerous and so exciting.
Thank you so much.
Maybe I could add something.
We just have to say.
I have 5 minutes.
You have is it
Yes,
closed?
but no one is here.
It's a room that is closed.
I will stay.
I don't want to blame the organization. There's so much for this night. It's a marvelous organization. So there's just this little overlapping, but it's a pity today. Etienne, you want to react?
Yes. Apparently, we agree about the problem raised by radical enhancement, and one of those problems maybe that I think it confuses debates when Kurzweil or Strandberg say that one day we will be able to upload our mind on a computer and we will be eternal. And each time the commentators and the philosophers say, oh look, they are victims of religious fantasy, the fantasy of disembodied life, life free of any finiteness and free of the death. And I think it confuses the debate because it doesn't concern specific and concrete enhancement in our lives. I think that enhancement in our lives are much more material devices, are very present. If we want a life with electronical and material devices that help us to achieve our functions, I think that it is going to materialize our lives much more than today. We are going to a much more materialized life and much more embodied life in a way. So I think it's exactly the contrary than the fantasy of the post-human prophets, you know. We are not going to a disembodied and religious life. On the contrary, I think you are going to a very, very bodily life with many devices everywhere, you know. So.
When you were speaking about your experience with zombies, I was wondering what I was going to say, because for me, the zombie is really a philosophical persona, a philosophical characters. And so, for me, the first zombie, in fact, my book was called My Zombie and I, and it was my editor who chose the title. And I had, like, page 54, I had spoken about my zombie, and he said, oh, My Zombie and I, it's a great title. I said, okay. But so, for me, the zombie was at first not so interesting. I was more interested in robots and vampires, and I thought the vampires had like a longer history, and you could do more things with the vampire. But then, since the editor chose the zombie, I got interested into zombies, and there are several zombies in philosophy, and with different kind of attributes. And in fact, it's kind of an ambiguous character who links different contradictory aspects and give life to them while they are still contradictory. So it's something about characters in fiction that can relate contradictory aspects. For example, if you take, speaking of something else than zombie, if you take Sherlock Holmes, the detective, you know, on one hand he's a logical machine, he's described as that by Conan Doyle. On the other hand, he's a cocaine user and a virtuous violinist. If you think of this characteristic abstractly, you would not think it possible that a logical machine is also a cocaine user and a virtuous violinist. But Sherlock Holmes gives life to these characteristics as they are contradictory. And I think we have something like that with zombies.
Okay, so tonight we use a lot of words, cyborg, zombies, so maybe some of you don't know exactly what's a zombie. So I have a very simple definition for you. Zombie is a fictional, undead being created through the reanimation of a human corpse. So you have to know that the term zombie has been invented apparently in Haiti, so the Caribbean island, and it was part of the Vodou culture. But in fact, it became like a cultural and imaginatory icon
in the Occidental culture, where it was related also to apocalypse, to the fact of attacking human beings. So, I mean, now we see zombies everywhere, in movies, in literature. How do you explain, both of you, that this figure has taken such a role in our Occidental culture?
I would say, firstly, it has to do with a fascination about the apocalypse, that the apocalypse is kind of present in our society, both connected to the climate change and to like the fact that we know that the world in 50 years will not be as it is today. It will be really different. We have a lot of huge problems that will be, you know, catastrophic in a soon future. And I think we have to handle that in some way. That kind of knowledge, it's kind of difficult to grasp that and to take that into your own life. And one way of handling it is through culture. And I think that's one of the reasons why the zombies are so popular, that we have to handle the fact that we live in a society that's not getting better, that's actually getting worse. And I also think it has to do with alienation, that our everyday life is so complex, and we don't really understand what's happening around us. And there's a longing for something more simple. And we often see that in the post-apocalyptic movies and so, that the society is simpler. You live from hand to mouth in another way than you do today. And that's kind of appealing to a lot of people, I think. So I think that would be two of the main reasons why the zombies are so popular today.
Pierre, do you have an idea?
I'd say that we are becoming zombies in a kind of specific sense, which to me has been very well defined by Patrice Lelay, a Frenchman, that's what I know him. And it's in an interview in 2004, and he was the director of TF1, which is the main French popular television channel. And he said that the business of TF1 was to sell available brain time, and that so the idea was that TF1 was producing shows, and that these shows prepared people for the commercial. So these shows, they produced available brain time, available for the commercials. And so it means that when we watch TV, we actually work, because we work in a very definite sense, because we help producing something that has value, that is an available brain time. The channel works, help us to make our brain available, but of course by staring at the TV, we also help, producing this available brain time. And what is available brain time? It means that that the brain or the mind can be directed by the commercial. And that's exactly what zombies are. Zombies, they have some kind of desire, but this desire gets oriented by the first object that is available, that is given to them. So a zombie, he would walk in the street, and the first human he sees, he would walk towards this human in order to feed. He can't think, he just has this desire that is orientated by the object that is presented to it. And that's what, according to Patrice Lelay, TF1, or TV, or video games, are attempting to make of us. So I think this idea of zombie, it illustrates, or it crystallizes a kind of view of ourselves that we have, and that we kind of both fear and desire. So I think this zombie is important, because that's really a kind of danger that we unconsciously feel, we unconsciously perceive.
But that's very different from the vision of the zombie that you propose in your book, because you propose a more positive vision of zombie, where you say that every philosopher should have a double, which is a zombie, and which allows him to get into imagination, and that every philosopher should learn from fiction and be present in that other world through his zombie.
Yeah, this kind of zombie work, this kind of that we do when we watch TV, making our brain available, is a role of the zombie that is different to the role I give to the zombie in my book. But in a way, that's why the zombie is interesting as a fictional character. That's because you can make it's an ambiguous character, and you can make different use of it. You can bring it into various situations, and it still work.
That has to do a lot with consuming things, and also like a desire to consume things you don't really need. The zombie don't really need to consume humans for like some kind of nutritional value. It's got some kind of just having a drive or instinct to continue feeding. As our consumption, we don't get happier when we buy the latest iPhone. Yeah, for a while, but then we want the next one, the next one, the next one. It's kind of the same hunger you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Did I understand you right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a desire that is not thoughtful.
No.
That is, in a way, it's not blind because it sees object, but it doesn't think that it's like dangerous to go. The zombie doesn't think that it's dangerous to feed there and that he should think about it and have a strategy. There's just an object, he gets there. The same thing. I'm showed a big car after my football match, and I want that car. And in a way, that's why I'm watching the football match for.
So maybe technology has a big role in us fearing to become zombies, because we talked about cyborgs earlier, like the fact of being controlled by so many machines can make our subjectivity and our uniqueness really lower. What do you think about that?
Another way to phrase it is I have an uncle, my mother's brother, and he's a bit worried, and he has this particularity that he always have a thermometer with him. When he visits someone, he always had a thermometer, and he would leave a thermometer somewhere. And so I've spent a lot of time wondering why would he leave, would he have a thermometer like that? And after many years, I realized that he doesn't seem to know himself whether he's hot or whether he's cold. Usually I'm hot, I can feel it, but it is as if he doesn't know that he's hot. And so he looks at the thermometer, and it's 25, I'm hot, and he takes off his jacket. So it is like he has lost the ability to read his own experience, his own experience. And I think now we are all doing the same. And for instance, during the last French election, we had this election, and I received an email. It was by a company called Crowdpack, and the company, it's true, you can check on your iPhones now. The company offered me to take a test on the internet, and the test would tell me for whom I want to vote. It's weird, I should know for whom I want to vote, but the company thought I would not know for whom I want to vote, and I would take the test, and then I would know. That's exactly like my uncle with the thermometer. We tend to give to machines or to some kind of technology the task to read what was supposed to be our personal experience. And that's, I'm not saying that is necessarily that we have, for example, that we have necessarily a more simple experience, because it is read by a machine, but we just have another kind of experience. And the ultimate step would be that on our smartphones we would have an app, and the app would browse our emails and our Google search and the number of times we've looked on the weather forecast, and in the morning it would tell me, okay, today you are happy, a bit tired, but in good health. And I would read, instead of, when I wake up looking at my emails, I would look at this app and it would tell me how I feel. So I would not have to, wonder how do I feel, if I'm happy today or I'm not happy. The app would tell me. And that's a transformation of our experience, both in its content and in its nature.
So we are all at risk of becoming zombies, basically. So what do you teach? What are your advices in case of a zombie attack? We need advices tonight.
Yeah, we do. Organize yourselves. Get to know your neighbors. Start working out. There's a lot of different aspects of survival, or how to survive a disaster. There's actually some studies made on people surviving disasters, and one of the most important aspects of survival, I would say, is the social aspect, that you need to be able to organize yourself to do things with others, because when stuff happens, it may not be zombies, it could be some kind of other disaster. People seek to each other and want to do things together, want to solve the problems that occur. So I'd say organizing is one of the most important parts of zombie survival, actually.
And what you observed during your lessons, did it teach you a lot about human beings, about their weaknesses, about resilience?
Yes, I think I have. But I think people are more prepared than they think they are. Preparedness, like disaster preparedness in general, people tend to think it has to do with the amount of water or food you have stuffed in your cupboard, but it has to do with a lot of other things, like more soft values, like knowing your neighbors and having like a good social network. I'd say that is more important than actually have those like a lot of liters of water in your apartment. But it's always good to have a crowbar at home for when the zombies come.
And do you think that zombies is like a temporary metaphor, or will it last forever, or will it be replaced by another figure?
All monsters have dips and like tops in popularity. In the 90s, for example, the vampires were more popular than zombies. There were almost no zombie movies made at all during the 90s. So that was kind of an era of the vampire. But in the beginning of the 21st century, the zombies became more and more popular. And I think it has to do with more uncertainty, more unsecure world. 9/11, a lot of like pandemic threats, SARS, for example, mad cow disease. There was a lot of the bird flu. There was a lot of like pandemic threats that kind of boosted the fear of something happening that you can't control, because zombies, you can't control zombies. You can argue with the vampire. You can say no, his blood is much more tasty. Bite him instead, but you can't argue with the zombie. So I think zombies are more a metaphor of the unknown, of nature. And I haven't seen any decline in zombie popularity. The opposite, actually. I've been interested in the zombie, the last 10 years maybe, the zombie genre really has exploded and becoming more and more popular. And it's not only like heavy metal fans watching old VHS cassettes. It's everyone watched Walking Dead, for example. So I think I don't really see darkness or some kind of decline in the zombie popularity.
Okay, and since Pierre, you were talking about the zombie as a double, like an avatar, could we not see some also video games icons as zombies, because people tend to project themselves so much in their video games avatars?
So the zombie as avatar, so the idea in my book My Zombie and I was that philosophy should explore the various possibilities that that we can imagine for ourselves. That is, okay, I have like, you know, the body that I have. What kind of body can I imagine to have? For instance, can I imagine to have a body with two disconnected parts? You know, my head would be on the microwave and I would be a headless body, you know. So what would my life be like if my body was in two parts? How would I like control myself, or how would I walk? Or can I imagine to have a body where there is no separation between the inside and the outside? For instance, I would be able to see through, you know, myself, or you know, could I have, for instance, anyway. So what kind of body could we have? And the zombie in the book was this kind of double with a body that would be indefinitely plastic and could take all those situations. You know, and of course, it is not me that has the head on the microwave and this disconnected body. Or to take another example, could I imagine to have like a toothache? You know, when we have a toothache, the toothache is inside our face. We feel the toothache somewhere around here. But does it make sense that I could feel the toothache? It's a definite sensation. I would feel the toothache in the light on the table. You know, I would feel pain there. Does it make sense? Could we imagine a story where we have sensations that we usually have inside our body, but we have them outside? You know, we can walk through, just as you can point to the teeth where you have pain, you could point to the place outside where you have that kind of pain. Does it make sense? Can we tell a story about this? So the zombie was this character with a very plastic body. So it was a kind of avatar, an avatar that could take different shape, a bit like in a video game. You know, in a video game you play, you know, Call of Duty, and you're this kind of, you know, warrior, and then you play Assassin's Creed, and you have another avatar with another body and various ability. But in a way, your ability to play one game, they kind of translate into the other game, you know. So you have, in the same way, you have an avatar which can enter various universe. So I would agree with the identification between zombie in this sense and avatar, and the relationship between, in fact, that kind of philosophy that explore the possible and, in a way, possible universes with video games.
Who is saved by the technique, of course, but is also controlled by military, capitalist enterprises, companies that, of course, seize upon the human body. And here we have the idea that, of course, being a cyborg, and the meaning of the cyborg as a fiction, a myth that we live with, is something that is very ambiguous. And this is the duality of the cyborg. We cannot get rid of dualities. And this is what the term cyborg means, cybernetic organism. We cannot get rid of any of the term. We have to live with both of them. We are not free or controlled. We are both of them at the same time. So, there has been a tendency in recent times to consider that, in fact, we are already cyborgs. Or maybe we have already been cyborgs. Because we use tools. We are tools all the way down. We are natural-born cyborgs. Well, we have, you know, I have a microphone, but I have clothes. You may have glasses or lenses. Or, we have lots of tools. We have houses, not only museums. So we're not. So this artificiality of the creators of Prometheus, of course, may link us to the idea that in fact we are cyborgs. But I think that if we believe we take this seriously, that we are cyborgs. And the concept of cyborg suddenly loses all its relevance, its conceptual relevance. Because in fact, there is something, very scary in the cyborg. Nobody really wants to be a cyborg. You want to be a superhero, augmented, an enhanced being. But you don't want to be a cyborg, because being a cyborg is just giving away too much of your autonomy. And so I think at this point we have to make a difference between being tools, being organisms that use tools, and being cyborgs. So that would be maybe being organisms that are necessarily wired to tools, organisms that would have lost their autonomy in favor of, depending on the technical system. So we are proud of thinking that we are in fact what I call, I needed a term to describe this, so I said maybe we can speak of organorg, like the organism which has tools, organs, everything being organs. So we are proud of being organorgs, like being humans, autonomous organisms that in fact use tools, but are always free to, dispose of them or turn them off. We have the power to switch off, and that's what the organorg has, and that the cyborg doesn't have. And so, this difference. But then, it's clear, you're organorg, cyborgs. But then you have, for instance, say, people with, how is it called? A pacemaker, a cardiac pacemaker. Something, like a technical device that is necessary for them to survive. So these people with a pacemaker, then, okay, do we have an intermediate figure? It's very interesting here because, in fact, we see in the case of the people with pacemaker that at the same time, the technical device is providing this person with autonomy, is helping these people to go on as autonomous organisms. But at the same time, once you get into the process of getting the pacemaker, then you have to go through periodic revisions. You are, you may be exposed to, to be out of battery, for instance. Yeah. Okay. So this is an interesting case as it shows these ambiguities of the cyborg condition. It saves, and also it's clearly a loss of your initial autonomy as an organism. But I want to use the people with pacemakers as a way to challenge this organorg idea, because we are very proud of being organorg. Like, I can switch off every time I want. But is it really true? Is it really the case? And here we can think, for instance, of a car. I have a car, I have my keys, I drive wherever I want, and when I have reached my destination, I park. But then, again, in order to be able to ride a car, you have to rely on roads. You need to have roads in good shape. You have to rely on gasoline. You have to have places from point to point where you can get your gasoline. You also have to have traffic lights. Otherwise, you cannot just use your car. So, in fact, once you use the car, it's not only a tool that you can, easily dispose of. I can just take a car when I want, and then no, you are dependent on a whole technical system. So the tools, the machines are not individual objects. They belong to a system, and as you use the tool, then you get involved in a system that is much bigger than you and your tool. And again, if you think of a second example here, if you think of your cell phone, your smartphone, everyone is free to have or have not a smartphone, of course, and I can switch it off every time I want. But again, of course, more and more of our individualities is involved in this device. It's a technological device. not to mention, of course, the several addictions that people have with their cell phones. I was texting in the room and someone commented, oh, he's texting, instead of watching the pictures. So we're not allowed, we're not free regarding a device, and of course, it's not only a problem of addiction, it's also a problem of surveillance. They are used to self-surveillance and also to general surveillance. In a time where terror attacks are not few, then having a cell phone or turning off your cell phone can be suspicious. Why do you turn yourself off? So these examples are just to show that in fact we are not really so free of being of getting rid of the tools that we use. We are somehow caught in a technical system, and this technical system is something that seems to be way beyond us. So, can technology be or become natural? You can say, yes, of course, technology has always been created by organisms. So, in fact, it can be said to be a vital need, a vital strategy of the organism to survive. But at some point, you understand that the idea that tools are just external organs for us, which is the basic idea of the organon. Tools as just external organs is not sufficient, because tools are not organs. Tools have become organisms. They have become, in some way, a different kingdom of nature. You have the vegetable, the animal, the humans maybe, and you have also the technical world. And it's not only, techniques are not only a strategy that we have developed in order to cope with our environment. They have become a world of their own. So yes, technologies are organic, they are biological in their origin. They come from, all technologies have come from a biological source in some way. They have been produced by organisms, but they also have become natural in the sense that they really participate and constitute an environment for us. So we live in a technical milieu, in a technical environment, and it's not something that we can switch off. It's not in our capacity any longer. Thank you.
Here's two important points. I mean, if we discuss this kind of medically technology engineered human being, and especially this cyborg idea, you talked about GPSs and so, we should acknowledge that to a certain extent we are already cyborgs, of course. Yeah. We interact with these mobile phones and they sort of, they control our life, technology controls our life. We're sitting here, so and maybe it doesn't matter so much if it's sort of directly plugged to the brain or if it's in my hand, as long as I really sort of interact with it in a thorough manner. And if I lose it, I feel like I've lost my stuff. I mean, it's really part of myself in that sense. So that's one point. The other point is it's a kind of repetition. I think we have to if we're going to ask if it's good to enhance, to sort of affect a certain human trait, to make us taller or stronger or more generous, as you said. I think you seem to take it for granted that it was clearly the case that we wanted to become more generous. But I mean, I don't think it's so clear. When you go to individual sort of traits like generosity or, well, maybe even curiosity or having a better memory, which is the more sort of easy cases, of course you don't know, because it would affect other characteristics that we have. If I'm more generous, maybe I become less, I don't know, just or something like that. I mean, it's complicated in that way. The different traits, they affect each other. It's most clear in the cases of what is known in the debate as moral enhancement. Julian Savulescu and Harris and Ingmar Persson and others come up, some years ago, maybe 10 years ago, something like that, or even less. But we need to genetically, morally enhance human beings. This is our only way to survive, because we are sort of inherently bad and weak, and we will just destroy each other and the whole planet if we don't sort of morally enhance. But immediately when you start sort of asking, okay, what is it in this case is that we should enhance, you get the problems. And you also got sort of internal inconsistency between the philosophers, because, I mean, they wanted to go for generosity, I mean, being less sort of racial or sort of prejudiced towards people that don't look like you. It's not your family, not your skin color or something like that. That was one thing they wanted to do. And what was the other? Do you remember? It's two. It just slipped my mind. It's the generosity, and what's the other one? It's empathy. It's empathy, of course. Empathy, of course. Yes, yes. And John Harrisman pointed out that if we do this, if we genetically enhance, we will, according to him at least, take away our human free will. We will affect the free will, and the free will is what makes us human and moral in the first place. So that's one way to sort of oppose it. Another way is, of course, to say that if we become more generous and empathic in this way, maybe we become less just or something like that, or maybe we become less curious and creative, or maybe there's something in aggressivity that is very important for us, and it's because of aggressivity that we came as far as we came. So I think it's, in all these cases, it's more complex when you discuss the sort of individual cases and traits. Yes.
Thank you. Det fanns också en motståndsrörelse i Berlin som var en blandning av kristna och judiska medlemmar. Det var grundat av en man som var deporterad till Theresienstadt, en koncentrationsläger i Tjeckoslovakien. Rymde därifrån, kom tillbaka till Berlin och grundade detta motståndsrörelse. Vad betyder motståndsrörelse? Man tryckte upp flygblättar och fördelade dem. Och man fördelade dem på så sätt att man stoppade dem i brevlådor hos olika lägenheter. Och det intressanta är att det var en mamma och son som tryckte de där flygbladen. Och sonen var medlem i Hitlerjugend. Och därigenom hade han uppdraget att när det var flyglarm att kolla att alla dörrar och fönster stod öppna i de lägenheter i huset och i grannhusen. Och han gick i sina Hitlerjugenduniform och tog med de flygbladen och fördelade dem i de olika brevlådor, alltså oregelbundet så att man inte kunde härleda dem från honom. Det var människor med en egen vilja och människor som hade medkänsla med andra. Och det är så viktigt att när idag kommer invandrare som flyr från olika krigshärjade områden, så ska man begära av dem att de försöker anpassa sig, men man ska själv göra en insats. Och jag har en väninna i Berlin, och denna väninna är dottern till Albert Speer. Albert Speer var krigsrustningsminister för Hitler. Och hon var en av de första grundarna av de gröna i Tyskland. Hon hade tagit avstånd från sin pappa. Hon var född 1935. Hon har suttit i knäna hos Hitler. Hon hade en pappa som hon sa att han var den bästa pappa jag kunde ha. Men hon växte upp under den där tiden att han satt i fängelse. Han fick 20 år fängelse efter kriget, Nürnberg domstol. Och, hon bor nu i en gemensamt. Det är 4 äldre personer och de har tagit upp 4 syriska ungdomar under förutsättning att de får varje dag underrättat dem i tyska 3 timmar per dag. Och de har kommit så långt att 3 av dem studerar på universitetet, 2 blir läkare och den 3:e studerar juridik. Och den 4:e har nu tagit på tyska sin studentexamen. Och det är det sättet som man ska hjälpa andra och tänka på andras lidande och försöka lindra det. Det är klart om det är ungdomar, de kom till Tyskland utan sina föräldrar, utan sina vänner och har nu fått en ersättning av de 4 äldre människor för sina föräldrar. De styr lite grann deras liv. Och så är det att man kan hjälpa andra och inte se bort.